This is the long haul, a sleep story. The year is 2283. You are the captain of the MSV Meridian, a cargo freighter arriving at Mars. Your dock lies 5 kilometers deep inside the wall of Valles Marineris, the largest canyon in the solar system. You have a few quiet hours while the crew unloads Earth luxuries, wood furniture, wine from Bordeaux, and takes on iron ingots for the next leg. Your first mate, Lieutenant Patel, has asked you for 3 runs now to bring back a particular Martian tea, Olympus Sunrise, from a small stall on the canyon rim. To reach it, you must take a 7-kilometer pressurized elevator from the dock to the rim above. Close your eyes, settle in, and if you feel comfortable, click like and subscribe. It really helps. And leave a comment to let us know where in the universe you are listening from tonight. Now, let the journey carry you to rest. You wake to a change in the hum. It takes a moment to place it. The drive, which has pushed steadily for 11 days out from Titan, has shifted pitch, lower now, and tapering. The deceleration burn. Mars is close. You lie still for a while. The cabin is dim. The small lamp above your bunk glows the warm amber color you set it 2 years ago, and the air carries the faint, clean smell of the recyclers running their morning cycle. You let your eyes adjust. The viewport above your bunk is uncovered. Through it, against the deep black, a reddish disk has grown larger overnight. Mars. You have seen it many times from many angles, and still the color surprises you. Not the rust of an old roof, something warmer, something almost alive. You sit up slowly. The centrifugal ring still holds the cabin at 0.8 gravities, the same as it has been since you left the Saturn system. Your feet find the cool deck plating. You rest there a moment, letting the weight settle into you again before you stand. You dress in the quiet way of someone who has done this thousands of times. The gray trousers, the soft undershirt, the dark jacket with the meridian patch on the shoulder, a crescent and 3 small stars. You fasten the cuffs. You run a hand through your hair. There is no hurry. In the galley, the lights are at half. 2 of the crew are already there, hands wrapped around metal cups. Patel is one of them. He looks up as you enter, and there is something in his face you have not seen for the whole long crossing. He is going home. Patel was born in the Tharsis colony on the high western plateau of Mars. He has not been back in 2 years. You have promised him the shuttle to the transit station as soon as the cargo manifest is signed. He will have a few days with his mother. He nods at you over his cup. You nod back. You pour yourself coffee from the pot. It is the last of the earth beans kept for arrivals. The smell is dark and round and a little nostalgic. You wrap both hands around the cup and let the warmth move into your fingers. Patel says quietly, almost as if he has been waiting 11 days to ask, "You will get the tea, Captain?" You smile. You tell him yes, the 3rd time of asking, and finally a port with hours to spare. He looks down at his cup and tries not to smile too widely. You finish the coffee slowly. Outside the small galley window, Mars is no longer a disk. It is a curve, a horizon. The meridian is descending toward the upper edge of the atmosphere, slow and patient on the last of its braking burn. You make your way forward to the bridge. The corridor is quiet. Through the long observation strip on the port side, the planet rolls beneath you, vast and red, and the great scar of Valles Marineris begins to come into view. From orbit, the canyon is impossible to take in all at once, 4,000 kilometers long, up to 200 kilometers wide, 7 kilometers deep. If it were laid across Earth, it would stretch from New York to Los Angeles. You have seen it from this exact angle many times. it still makes you stop. It opened billions of years ago as a tectonic rift. The Tharsis Bulge, that great volcanic uplift to the west, pushed up so hard against the crust that the crust simply tore. What you are looking at now is the long, slow scar of that tearing. 4 billion years of wind and dust have done the rest. On the bridge, your second officer gives you the small, formal nod that means everything is on schedule. The meridian threads down toward the canyon wall on a line traced thousands of times before. The dock cavity is carved 5 kilometers deep into the rock face, a dark mouth in the red cliffs, lit faintly from within. The ship slides into the cavity. The walls of red rock close around the viewport on every side. The clamps engage with a long, soft series of thumps that you feel in your feet more than you hear. The drive falls silent for the first time in 11 days. The meridian is at rest. You take the lift down to the airlock. The inner door opens. The dock corridor stretches away ahead of you. Low-ceilinged, lit in soft, warm white. You step through, and the gravity changes. Mars holds you at 0.38 gravities, about a third of Earth. Your body, which has been at 0.8 all crossing, becomes suddenly light. Not weightless, not floating, just lighter. As though something had been gently lifted from your shoulders. You take a slow, careful first step. The trick is not to push too hard on Mars. The body wants to bound. The boots want to lift. You learn after a few steps to make the motion smaller, light but purposeful. A shorter stride, a softer landing. The dock corridor is long, and there is no need to hurry. The smell reaches you before anything else. Red dust and machine oil, 2 centuries of fine Martian grit, brought in on boots and crates and pressure gear, have worked their way into every corner of this place. There is no scrubbing it out. After a while, you stop wanting to. The walls are painted in 2 colors, ochre below, rust above, with a thin, dark line between them at shoulder height. The color was chosen by the original builders in 2081, and no one in 200 years has thought to change it. There is something quietly lovely about that. The corridor opens after a few minutes, into the dock concourse. The ceiling lifts. The space widens. You are still inside the rock. There are no windows here, this deep, but the room has been made to feel generous. A long, curved hall with shops and stalls along one side and a row of low benches down the center. It is early in the Martian morning by the dock clock. The concourse is half asleep. A few crew from another freighter are sitting on the benches, helmets off, talking quietly. A cleaning drone moves slowly along the floor, polishing the red stone tiles in long, careful arcs. Toward the middle of the concourse, you see Inara's coffee stand, a small wooden counter under a curved canopy, a copper urn behind it. Inara herself, slight and gray-haired, wiping the counter with a cloth as she does every morning, as she has done every morning for 30 years. She looks up as you approach, and her face changes in the small, particular way of someone recognizing an old friend. She does not say your name. She rarely does. She simply turns to the urn and starts pouring a cup before you have asked for one. The first coffee of the Martian morning, she says, sliding it across to you. It is what she says every time. It has been what she has said every time, for as long as you have known her. The cup is small and warm. The coffee is dark and strong and tastes faintly of cardamom. Inara has seen every ship that has passed through this dock for 3 decades. The Meridian is one of her regulars. She knows the patches. She knows which captains take their coffee black, which take it sweet. She knows who has retired, who has died, who has had a child since they last came through. "And Rosario?" she asks, after a moment. "Your chief engineer." She always remembers to ask. You tell her Rosario is well, that her daughter has just started at the engineering school on Ceres. Inara nods, satisfied, as if a small piece of her ledger has been quietly updated. You drink the coffee slowly, leaning on the counter. The concourse moves around you in its quiet morning rhythm. Somewhere far away, a bell chimes, the half-hour mark on the dock clock. You set the cup down, empty. Inara waves away the chit. You insist. She insists harder. You give in. From Inara's stand, it is only a short walk to the customs office. A small room with a long counter and an older woman behind it. Her hair pinned back, her uniform crisp. She looks up, takes your access token, glances at the manifest you have already filed, and stamps it with a slow, certain hand. "Welcome back to Mars, Captain," she says without looking up. "Enjoy the rim." She slides the token back across the counter. The whole exchange takes less than a minute. You step out into the concourse again and turn toward the elevator station at the far end of the hall. The elevator station is a high-vaulted space carved out of the canyon wall. 4 passenger cars sit waiting, evenly spaced along a long, curved platform. Their walls are transparent on the outer side. Their floors and ceilings are dark, polished metal. They look from here like 4 small lit rooms hanging in the rock. A young attendant in a soft red uniform gestures you toward the nearest car. There is no one else waiting at this hour. You step inside. The floor is warm. There is a low padded bench along the inner wall and a single brass handrail running the length of the transparent face. The doors close with a soft hiss. A gentle chime sounds. A voice recorded long ago by someone with a kind, unhurried accent says, "Ascending to the rim, 7 kilometers. Approximate journey time 14 minutes. Please enjoy the view." Then the car begins almost imperceptibly to ride. For the first minute there is nothing to see. The transparent wall shows only rock, lit by small recessed lamps embedded in the shaft. Red rock mostly, with darker veins running through it. It moves past slowly, smoothly, as if the rock itself were the thing in motion, and you were standing still. You sit on the bench, you let your hands rest on your knees. The car rises so smoothly that you would not know you were moving at all, except for the slow, steady scroll of layered stone outside the glass. The layers begin to change. The bright red of weathered iron-rich rock at the lower levels gives way slowly to darker bands. Basalt, old volcanic flows from the deep past when the Tharsis bulge was still pushing the crust upward and the canyon was still finding its shape. Then a pale band, almost cream-colored, appears in the rock, sedimentary, laid down, the geologists believe, by ancient water lakes and slow rivers that ran through Valles Marineris when Mars was a younger, wetter world. You watch the pale band scroll past for almost a full minute. It is hundreds of meters thick. You think, as you have thought before in this elevator, of the slowness of the thing you're passing through. Each layer of rock is millions of years thick. The pale band alone might represent a span longer than the entire history of mammals on Earth, and the elevator carries you through it in seconds. Above the pale band, the rock turns red again. A different red. Lighter, almost pink in places. The lamps in the shaft give it a soft glow, like the inside of a paper lantern. You let your eyes follow it upward, layer over layer, and your breath slows without your noticing. A faint chime, the recorded voice again, gentle as before. Approaching the outer face, please be aware of changing light. You sit forward a little. The hand on the brass rail tightens, only slightly in anticipation. And then it happens. The rock thins, the lamps in the shaft fall behind. The wall in front of you lightens, and breaks open into sky. The canyon spreads below you. The far wall is still in shadow. The floor is 6 kilometers down, a soft, dim patchwork of dunes and dry channels. The near wall, the wall you have just emerged from, falls away beneath the elevator car in a long red sweep that you cannot quite take in. For a moment you do not breathe, not from fear, just from the size of it. Valles Marineris is the largest canyon in the solar system, and you are halfway up the inside of one of its walls in a small lit room of glass, rising slowly toward the rim. You stand. You step closer to the glass. You rest your hand against it. It is cool to the touch. Outside, the air of Mars is thin and cold and very still. There is no wind today. The dust on the canyon floor is undisturbed. The sky above the far wall is salmon pink, a soft, dusty pink that feels nothing like an Earth sky. It is the color of fine iron oxide held in suspension in a thin atmosphere, scattering the daylight in its own particular way. But near the horizon, where the sun has not yet risen above the far wall, the sky is something else. A pale, cool blue, the reverse of Earth. On Earth, the sky is blue by day and red at sunrise. On Mars, the sky is red by day and blue at the edges of dawn and dusk, a blue sunrise on a red world. It happens because the dust scatters red light when the sun is high. But when the sun is low and its light passes through a long, thick column of that same dust, the red is filtered away and the cooler blue light comes through. A simple physics, a strange and gentle effect. You look down 6 kilometers below. The canyon floor is in deep blue shadow, threaded with the long curving lines of ancient riverbeds. They run for tens of kilometers in some places, dry now for billions of years, but their shapes are still unmistakable. Water once moved here. You can see for 60 kilometers down the length of the canyon, maybe more. The far end fades into a soft pink haze. Somewhere out there, beyond what your eyes can hold, the canyon continues for thousands of kilometers more. You will never see all of it. Almost no one ever has. A small impact crater, maybe a kilometer across, sits on the canyon floor about 10 kilometers out. Its rim catches a thin line of early light. Inside it is still dark. You wonder briefly how long it has been there. 1 million years. 10 million. The question has no useful answer. The car continues to rise. You can feel it now, very faintly, in your knees. The sense of being slowly lifted. The far wall comes a little closer, in the way of large things that they grow into your view, rather than approaching it. You think of the Tharsis bulge far to the west. You cannot see it from here, but you know it is there. A great upwarp of crust, crowned by the 4 largest volcanoes in the solar system. Olympus Mons, Arzia, Pavonis, Ascraeus, the same uplift that billions of years ago cracked the ground open and made this canyon. 4 billion years, you let the number sit in your mind. Older than multicellular life on Earth, older than the oldest fossils, older than almost anything that lives. The canyon was already ancient when the first single cell on Earth was learning how to divide itself in 2. It is a quieting thought, not a sad one, just a quieting one. The kind of thought that makes the small things in your day, the tea you have promised to fetch, the coffee you finished a few minutes ago, feel oddly precious. Small, bright points against an enormous, patient background. The car keeps rising. The blue band along the horizon thickens very slowly as the sun moves toward cresting the far wall. The light in the elevator changes by tiny degrees. You sit back down on the bench. You let your shoulders drop. You watch. A second chime, the recorded voice says, approaching the rim. Please prepare to disembark. You stand. You smooth your jacket. You take one last look down at the canyon floor, far below now, half lit, half in shadow, before you turn toward the inner wall of the car and the doors. The car slows. There is the faintest soft pressure in your knees as it does, then a gentle stop, so quiet you almost miss it. The doors open. Warm air drifts in, smelling of stone and dried herbs and something almost like bread. You step out onto the rim. The floor beneath your boots is polished red sandstone, local stone cut from the rim itself 2 centuries ago. It is worn smooth in long curving paths where 200 years of footsteps have passed over it. The unworn parts between the paths are slightly rougher to the eye, slightly more textured. You are standing in the rim concourse, a long, low-ceilinged hall built into the lip of the canyon, with wide, curved windows running along its outer wall. Through them, the canyon stretches away in both directions, vast and open and slowly filling with the first true light of dawn. In the center of the concourse, on a low plinth of dark stone, stands the bronze statue of Ama Tejada, the first administrator of the Rim settlement. A small woman, life-sized in early pressure gear, with a slightly tilted helmet under one arm and her free hand raised in a gesture that might be a wave or might be a blessing. Her face is worn smooth around the nose and the chin. 2 centuries of hands have touched her there for luck, for a moment of pause before a long journey. The bronze beneath those hands has gone the soft polished gold of much-handled metal. The rest of her is dark and patinated. You pass close to her, as you always do. You let your fingers brush the smooth bronze of her cheek. It is warm, probably from the lights above, but it always feels warmer than that, as though some of the warmth of 200 years of hands had been quietly stored there. A small group of researchers passes you on their way to the elevators, 3 of them in pale field jackets, carrying instrument cases. They are heading down to the floor stations to check on dust collectors and weather sensors. They nod to you, the way travelers nod to each other in quiet places, and move on. A family stands by one of the wide windows, a man and a woman and 2 small children, the children pressed against the glass with their hands flat and their breath fogging it. The parents are watching the canyon. The children are watching too, but with a kind of held-still wonder that is its own thing. They are probably heading to the market. An old prospector sits on one of the long benches with a cup of something warm in his hands. His face is weathered the particular way Martian faces weather dry skin, fine lines around the eyes from squinting against red glare. He nods at you. You nod back. Neither of you says anything. There's nothing that needs saying. You drift over to the window for a moment yourself. The far wall of the canyon is even now mostly in shadow, but the very top edge of it has begun to catch the first true sunlight of the morning. A thin, bright line, high up, slowly thickening. The line moves, by tiny degrees, downward. The blue band along the horizon is still there, paler now. As the sun climbs, the blue will fade, and the salmon pink of full Martian day will spread across the whole sky. But for these few minutes, the 2 colors sit beside each other in a way you have never quite gotten used to. You hope you never will. You turn from the window. The market is at the far end of the concourse, beyond a wide stone arch. From where you stand, you can already see the soft, warm glow of the lamps inside it, and hear the first muffled sounds of the day. Voices, the clink of metal on glass, a small bell being rung once and then again. You walk slowly toward the arch. The light, low gravity makes the walk feel almost weightless, and you have to remind yourself again. Small steps, soft landings. You pass another bench, another set of windows. The concourse curves gently. It is built to follow the line of the rim itself. A pair of dock workers in dust-colored coveralls cross your path, on their way to a small canteen tucked into one wall. One of them carries a folded newspaper, printed on the thin, fibrous Martian paper that crinkles softly with every step. The other carries a child's toy, a small carved wooden animal, and is turning it gently in his fingers. You reach the arch. Above it, carved into the red stone in plain block letters, are 3 words: the Rim Market. Beneath them, in smaller letters, a date: 2083. 200 years old this year. A small bronze plaque is set into the wall beside the arch. You have read it before many times, but you slow as you pass it and read it again. This market was opened on the 15th of May, 2083, by the settlers of Candor Chasma, for the exchange of goods and the keeping of company. For the keeping of company, you have always loved that line. Whoever wrote it understood that a market is not only a place where goods change hands, it is also a place where people come to be near each other, to hear voices that are not the voices of their own household, to remember that they are part of something larger. It is the oldest continuously operating market off Earth, 2 centuries of every morning being opened, every evening being closed, 2 centuries of stalls being passed from one generation to the next, 2 centuries of footsteps on these same red stones. You step beneath the arch. The smell hits you first. Dried tea leaves and bergamot and the soft, warm cloud of spices being weighed out somewhere ahead. Cumin, coriander, a dark sweet note that might be cinnamon. Underneath all of it, the dry warmth of a place where the air is always a little too dry for human comfort, and you have to remember to drink water. The market is a long, curving hall, lower than the concourse, lit by hanging lamps with copper shades. The lamps swing very slightly when someone passes beneath them. The light is warm and orange and softens everything it falls on. The stone floor is the same polished red as the concourse, worn into the same long, curving paths. The first stall on your right sells glass. Tharsis glass made in the small workshops on the Western Plateau, where the volcanic sand is rich in iron and the firing kilns produce a particular faint red tint that you cannot find anywhere else in the system. Bowls, cups, long thin vases, they catch the lamplight and hold it. Across from it, a stall of iron jewelry, rings, pendants, thin, twisted bracelets, all made from Martian iron, the same iron that fills the holds of ships like yours every time they pass through. The jeweler, a woman with gray hair pinned back simply, is laying out her morning tray. She does not look up. Her hands are sure. Further along, the spice stall, wide, shallow trays of cumin, coriander, paprika, dried chilies from the equatorial greenhouses where the simulated atmosphere lets the plants grow in long, warm rows. The colors of the spices in this lamplight are almost all variations of red and ochre, as if the market were quietly echoing the planet outside. A small stall sells embroidered patches, pressure suit patches mostly in the shape of ship crests. You scan them for a moment out of habit. There, near the back, is the meridian crescent and 3 stars, neatly stitched in white thread on a dark blue field. The patchmaker has been keeping a small stock of it for years. A used book stall, half tucked behind a column. Real paper books, thin and fibrous and slightly fragile in the dry air. The covers are faded. The spines are worn. You see a battered copy of an old novel you read once 20 years ago in a different cabin on a different ship. You let it sit. You will think of it again on the way down. A honey stall. Small jars of dark amber honey from the bees that live in the crop domes north of here. The bees were brought from Earth a century and a half ago, and the colonies have been bred carefully ever since to thrive in the slightly thinner dome air. The honey tastes faintly of almond blossom and something darker, almost smoky. A cat winds itself around your ankles. You look down. It is a small gray cat with a torn ear and yellow eyes looking up at you with that level. Considering expression cats reserve for strangers, you bend slowly and offer your hand. It sniffs your fingers, decides you are acceptable, and bumps its head against your knuckles once before walking on. The market cats are famous. 3 generations of them now, all descended from a single pregnant cat who was smuggled aboard a cargo run in 2197, hidden in a crate by a homesick crew member who could not bear to leave her behind. She arrived on Mars and had her kittens here. The kittens stayed. So did all of theirs. There are perhaps a dozen of them now in the market. They sleep on sacks of dried herbs. They patrol the corners. They keep the small native pests, the moth-like things that have evolved in the warm corners of human habitats over the last century, under quiet control. The traders feed them scraps. The cats consider it a fair arrangement. A few stalls along, you see one of the older cats, a gray-muzzled grandmother of a creature, fast asleep on a rough sack of dried mint. Her sides rise and fall slowly. One paw is curled under her chin. The trader at that stall does not even glance at her, but you notice that the sack she is sleeping on has been slightly rearranged to make a small, soft hollow for her body. You walk on. The market is waking slowly, in the way of all good markets. Shutters going up, cloths being shaken out, lamps being adjusted. A trader somewhere ahead of you laughs, low and warm, at something a neighbor has said. A cup is set down on a wooden counter with a soft tap. You pass a stall run by a family who you know have been here for 6 generations. The current owner is in his 60s. His grandfather's grandfather opened this stall 140 years ago. He was born on Mars and has never been to Earth. He has no particular wish to go. Mars is, for him, simply where home is. He looks up and recognizes you and lifts his hand in a slow greeting. You lift yours in return. He sells dried fruit, mostly apricots and figs and small dark plums grown in the southern domes, and he is laying out his trays for the day with the patient care of a man who has done this every morning for 40 years. The voices around you as the market fills weave together in a particular way. You hear English, you hear Mandarin, you hear Spanish, you hear the Martian slang that has developed over generations, words borrowed from each of those languages and slowly worn smooth into something of its own, a soft, slightly slower rhythm, different vowels. There is a particular Martian way of saying hello, a short 2-tone greeting that you have heard nowhere else in the system. It comes from somewhere deep in the early colony years, and no one quite remembers where. You hear it now, twice, from a stall ahead of you as a customer arrives and is welcomed in. You walk a little slower, there is no hurry. The cargo is being unloaded back at the dock. The iron ingots are being craned in. The first mate has the bridge. Your only job for the next 2 hours is to fetch 1 bag of tea and to be quietly present in this old place that has been quietly present for 2 centuries. A potter's stall on your left. Small clay cups in dark red and brown, fired in a kiln somewhere on the rim. The potter, a young woman with clay still on her wrists from this morning's work, is wiping down a low shelf. She has set out a small wooden tray with 3 perfect cups on it. They sit in a row like sleeping animals. A leather worker's stall, the leather grown in vats in one of the dome cities. Real protein, real grain, but cultured rather than killed. The smell is almost the same as old earth leather. Bags, belts, a folded jacket the color of dark wine. The leather worker is not at his stall yet. He will be along soon. A small bakery. The smell that you noticed at the entrance, that almost bread smell, turns out to come from here. A long, low oven set into a brick wall, and a baker, a tall, thin man with flour on his apron, sliding a tray of small flat loaves out with a long wooden paddle. The loaves are dark and dense and dusted with seeds. You stop for a moment, just to breathe in. Bread is bread. On every world humans have settled. The flour might be a Martian wheat, slightly different in protein content, slightly stranger to an earth tongue. But the smell of it baking is the same warm thing it has always been. Your shoulders drop another small fraction. A cat, smaller than the gray one, ginger and white, trots along beside you for several paces. It seems to have decided you are going its way. After a while it veers off through a gap between two stalls and disappears on its own quiet errand into the back of the market. You think of Patel back at the ship and the look on his face this morning when you said you would get the tea. 3 runs he has waited, 18 Earth months of asking, gently, never quite asking outright. The kind of small wish that crew members carry with them through long crossings. The kind of small wish a captain remembers. A spice trader nods you toward a row of small bowls. Try this. Try this. But you smile and shake your head and walk on. Not today. Today you are here for one specific thing, and the not stopping at every stall is itself a small pleasure. The market is wide. The errand is narrow. You move through it gently. The market curves. The lamps overhead grow a little dimmer, a little warmer. You pass a stall selling small bottles of perfume distilled from dome roses. You pass a stall of carved wooden combs. You pass a stall where an old man is repairing pressure suit gloves with a needle so small you can hardly see it. And then, ahead of you, you see it. The sign is small, a wooden board hung from a brass bracket, painted in faded red letters with a name you have come to know by heart over 3 runs of waiting. O'Floyne, tea merchant, established 2194. The stall itself is small and warm and tucked between the spice cellar on one side and a jeweler's bench on the other. 2 narrow wooden shelves run along the back wall, lined with glass jars of loose-leaf tea, each jar labeled in a careful sloping hand. A small wooden counter, polished by decades of elbows. A single brass scale. Behind the counter stands Ciara O'Floyne, 3rd generation on Mars in her 40s, with reddish-brown hair tied back simply and a soft green apron over her clothes. She is arranging a small wooden box of samples on the counter, and she looks up as you stop in front of her stall. Her eyes go straight to the patch on your shoulder. The meridian crescent in 3 stars. She has seen it before. She knows it. A small smile crosses her face, recognition, and something else. The patient pleasure of someone who remembers a face from a long way back. "Captain," she says. Just that. A statement, not a question. You return the greeting. She sets down the box of samples and rests her hands on the counter. "What can I get you this morning?" Her voice is soft and steady and slightly slow, the way many Martian voices are. "Olympus sunrise, you say. 200 grams. She looks at you for a moment, considering. "And it's for?" she asks. Not because she needs to know, because the question is part of the way she sells tea. She likes to imagine the cup it will end up in. "My first mate, you say. Lieutenant Patel. He has been asking for it for 3 runs now." Her smile widens. She turns toward the shelves behind her. 3 runs, she says, half to herself, half to you. That is a patient man. A good choice. He will know what to do with it. She lifts down a tall glass jar from the second shelf. The leaves inside are dark and slightly twisted, almost black, with a faint reddish sheen along their edges. She unscrews the brass lid and holds the jar gently toward you so you can lean in and smell. Malt, dark honey, something warm and almost smoky underneath. "You know the story of it?" she asks, screwing the lid back on. "You know some of it. You let her tell you anyway. People who love a thing love to tell it." She begins to speak as her hands move, slow and certain, lifting a small paper bag and setting it on the brass scale. "Beatrice Chen," she says. 2189. She was a botanist working in the high domes near Olympus Mons, 6 kilometers altitude, simulated atmosphere, thinner than down here on the rim. She was crossing Chinese black tea, Kimun mostly, with a high-altitude Darjeeling cultivar from the Indian foothills. "It took her 7 years," Ciara goes on. "Most of the early hybrids were terrible, bitter or weak or both. But the thinner air did something to the leaves, different stress on the plant, different chemistry. The cultivar she finally settled on has a particular flavor you cannot quite get anywhere else." Her hands are weighing the leaves now, slowly. She named it Olympus Sunrise because she liked to drink the first cup of the day in the dome viewing room, looking east while the sun came up over the slope of the mountain. She lived another 40 years after she perfected it. The cultivar has been grown in those same domes ever since. Same soil, same air, same slow harvest. The brass scale settles, 200 grams exactly. Ciara folds the top of the paper bag down twice, very neatly, and seals it with a small dab of warm wax from a tin she keeps beside the scale. She presses the wax with a small stamp, a stylized tea leaf, and lifts the bag and sets it on the counter in front of you. "There," she says. Then she pauses, and a small mischievous look comes into her eyes. "But you cannot leave with it untasted, Captain. Sit a moment. I will brew you a cup. It is bad luck to carry a sealed bag of Olympus Sunrise out of this stall without trying it first." She is already reaching for a small kettle. You do not argue. There is a small wooden stool tucked under the counter on your side, and you sit down on it. The market noise softens behind you. The little stall becomes its own quiet room, the lamps overhead, the rows of glass jars, Ciara at her kettle, you on your stool, a small parenthesis in the long day. She measures a small spoonful of leaves into a clay teapot. She pours hot water from the kettle in a long, thin stream, very deliberate, watching the leaves uncurl. Steam rises. She sets the lid on. She does not say anything. You do not say anything. The two of you sit with the small steaming pot between you for the time it takes the tea to brew. After perhaps 3 minutes, she lifts the lid, looks inside, gives a small, satisfied nod, and pours. A small ceramic cup, dark red on the outside, the inside glazed pale cream so you can see the color of the tea. The color is a deep, clear amber. Steam curls up off the surface in slow shape. She slides the cup across the counter to you. You wrap both hands around it. The warmth moves into your palms. You lift it slowly. Breathe in the steam, that same dark honey, that same warm, smoky note, deeper now, fuller, and take the first small sip. It is deeper than Darjeeling, darker than a Chinese black. There is the malt note Ciara mentioned, but underneath it something else. Something almost like dark stone fruit, almost like a memory of wood smoke, with a clean finish that sits at the back of the tongue and stays there for a long, quiet moment after the sip is gone. You understand, suddenly and entirely, why Patel has been asking for this for 3 runs. You set the cup down. You look up at Ciara. She is watching your face with the patient half-smile of someone who has watched a great many people taste this tea for the first time and is never tired of the moment. "Yes," you say. It is the only word you have. She nods, satisfied. You take another sip, slower this time, letting the cup cool a little in your hands. Outside the small stall, the market goes on with its quiet morning business. Inside it, for the moment, time has slowed almost to a halt. You should take it to the rim overlook, Ciara says after a while. The far end of the market, big curved viewport. The sun will crest the far wall of the canyon in about 10 minutes. It is the best place to drink this tea on this planet, and I should know. She is teasing, gently. You smile. You pay her. A small handful of station credits, a fair price for what you are taking. And she tucks the sealed paper bag of leaves into a soft cloth pouch and ties it with a thin red cord. She slides the pouch across the counter. You take it carefully and slip it into the inner pocket of your jacket against your chest, where nothing will happen to it. She lets you take the cup with you. Bring it back when you are done, she says. Or do not. I have plenty. You thank her. You stand. The little parenthesis opens again into the wider sentence of the morning. You step out of the stall with the warm cup in your hands and the sealed bag against your chest. You walk slowly toward the far end of the market. The cup steams in your hands. The lamps grow a little brighter as the market wakes more fully. A trader greets a regular customer with that two-tone Martian hello you noticed earlier. Somewhere a child laughs. A cat trots across the path in front of you and disappears under a stall. The far end of the market opens out into a smaller round room with a curved viewport set into the outer wall. The viewport is about 20 meters across, gently curved, framed in dark polished stone. A few low benches are arranged in front of it. The room is mostly empty. One older woman sits on one of the benches, her hands folded, watching the dawn. You walk to the window. You stand a few paces back from the glass. The canyon spreads in front of you, enormous, slow, just beginning to fill with light. The far wall is now half lit and half in shadow. The line where the two meet is sliding slowly downward as the sun climbs over the rim on the other side. The blue band along the horizon is fading, slowly replaced by tiny steps with the salmon pink of full Martian day. You watch the change. It is so gradual that you cannot quite point to the moment when one becomes the other, like watching a tide come in. You take a sip of the tea. It has cooled to perfect drinking warmth. The flavor is even rounder now than it was in the stall. The dark fruit, the faint smoke, the clean malt finish. You hold the sip in your mouth for a moment before you swallow. A bright, thin line of true sunlight reaches the top of the far wall. You see it appear almost as a single moment. A sudden bright edge across the high red rock. The line begins almost at once to slide downward, revealing layers of stone, casting shadows along ledges, lighting up the shapes of dunes hundreds of meters below it. You watch the line move. It moves more quickly than you remember. Or perhaps that is only how it always feels, that the dawn, once it begins, picks up a speed of its own. Within a minute, the upper third of the far wall is in full light. Within two, the middle. The colors brighten, the reds become more red, the shadows shrink and sharpen. The canyon floor catches the light last. The dunes down there are revealed slowly, one ridge at a time in long, pale gold curves. The dry riverbeds appear as soft, darker lines threading between them. The crater you noticed from the elevator is fully lit now, its inner wall casting a long, thin shadow across the floor. You drink the tea slowly. You do not say anything. The older woman on the bench does not say anything either. The two of you stand and sit in the same quiet room, watching the same blue and pink sky settle into a steady salmon, watching the canyon fill with the new day's light. There is a deep, contented stillness in the room. When the cup is empty, you hold it for a moment longer. just to feel the last of its warmth in your hands. Then you turn and walk back through the small viewing room, back into the market, the cup nestled in one palm, the bag of tea still safe against your chest. You return the cup to Ciara on your way past. She lifts it from your hand without a word and gives you a small nod. You walk back through the market the way you came. The light is brighter now in the lamps overhead, or perhaps you are simply seeing it differently. The bakery smell drifts past you again. The gray-muzzled cat is still asleep on her sack of mint. The dried fruit man lifts his hand again as you pass. You lift yours in return. Out under the arch, past the plaque, across the polished red floor of the rim concourse, past Ama Tejada's bronze statue, where you let your fingers brush her smooth cheek again on the way past. Past the wide windows where the canyon now glows in full daylight, and the children have been led away by their parents toward the market. The elevator station, the same young attendant in the soft red uniform, recognizing you and gesturing you toward an empty car. You step in, the doors close, the same gentle chime, the same recorded voice. Descending to the docks, 7 kilometers, approximate journey time 14 minutes. Please enjoy the view. The descent is the same trip in reverse and entirely different. The canyon is in full daylight now, the far wall awash of bright reds and ochres, the floor below clearer than before, every dune sharp, every shadow shorter. You sit on the bench, you watch it for as long as you can. Then the rock closes around the car, and the lamps in the shaft take over, and the layers of stone scroll downward past you in their long, slow story. The pale band of ancient sedimentary rock, the dark basalt, the bright red weathered iron-rich layers near the bottom. 4 billion years scrolling down past the glass in 14 minutes. You feel oddly held by it, as though the canyon itself were lowering you gently back to your ship. The car slows. The doors open. The dock concourse again, a little busier now. The morning fully arrived. You step out, the smell of red dust and machine oil, the familiar ochre and rust walls. You walk back through the concourse the way you came, past Inara's stand. She lifts a hand without looking up, past the customs office, through the long corridor that leads back to the Meridian's airlock. The inner door of the airlock opens. The familiar hum of the ship returns to your ears. The slightly higher gravity of the centrifugal ring settles back into your knees and shoulders. You are home. You take the lift up to the deck where the galley is, and you walk through to the small storage cabinet beside the kettle. You take the small cloth pouch out of your jacket. You untie the thin red cord and slide the sealed paper bag out. The wax stamp with its stylized tea leaf is still perfectly intact. You set the bag carefully on the second shelf, where Patel will see it as soon as he comes in for his next cup. You close the cabinet door with a small, soft click. Later, much later after the cargo is sealed and the manifest is signed, and Patel has been shuttled to the transit station for his short visit home, the Meridian will lift slowly out of its dock cavity in the canyon wall. The clamps will release. The drive will hum back to life. Mars will fall away below the viewports, and Valles Marineris will become a long, thin line on the curve of a red planet. But for now, you stand in the warm, small galley of your ship with one hand resting on the cabinet door, and you think of the cup of amber tea, and the smooth bronze cheek of Ama Tejada, and the line of light sliding down the far wall of the canyon, and the long, slow scroll of stone outside the elevator glass. You think of a blue sunrise on a red world. You think of a market 200 years old, of a gray-muzzled cat asleep on a sack of mint, of an old woman in a quiet viewing room watching the dawn beside you in companionable silence. The drive hums softly. The cabin is warm. Your bunk waits. The errand is done. The day is good. Sleep is coming. Later, the Meridian lifts away from the canyon wall, and Mars falls slowly below you in the viewport. The red plains, the long shadow of Valles Marineris, the thin curve of pink atmosphere, all of it shrinking, softening, becoming a small disk against the dark. The next port is already waiting, far ahead, Europa, with its ice-covered ocean and its quiet, pale light. The drive hums beneath the deck, steady and patient. The cabin is warm. Your bunk is turned down. And in the galley, in a small sealed bag on the second shelf, the Olympus Sunrise Tea waits safely for Lieutenant Patel. Sleep now. The Meridian carries you on. Good night.